tell a country, like they told us we want to impose a legislation on human rights. Can we tell them that it's like none of their business?
Okay, first of all, you never tell anybody anything. You can communicate to another country that you have an issue with their behavior or their actions, okay? But again, this is very, very careful. I mean, the wording here is this is what I want you guys to kind of pay attention to, right? And that is, you can communicate that you're trying to raise certain points that you want them to be aware of, okay? It's all about negotiation. It's all about agreement, right? It's not so much trying to, focus on what you disagree on, but ultimately a successful diplomatic negotiation process leads to the discovery of issues that you agree on. Because you can disagree. We all disagree and agree on everything, right? Okay. This is a normal part of life. The thing that you want to do is you want to somehow through negotiations find commonality. And you try to, and the secret here, particularly these very effective diplomats, as they remove from the discussion the information or the issues that they don't disagree on, and they focus on or try to discover what they agree on. So maybe something out of the negotiation process, what emerges is some sort of agreement. That we may disagree on points A, B, and C, but we agree on points E, F, and G. So you agree on E, F, and G. Do you see? And you separate them from, or you say A, B, and C, D from. You separate that from the negotiation process. Okay? All right. Is that so? But yeah, sure you can. Make a statement. But keep in mind, I want you guys to go beyond just making statements of intent now. I want you guys to begin moving what?
Agreement.
Into agreements. I want you to start contacting each other. That's what I want to see you guys begin doing. You've had enough time to get the cobwebs or get the issue of what am I really doing here? Okay, what am I supposed to do to, hey, reading the blog and looking at the articles and looking at the moves, what kind of agreements can we do? Okay, can we make? Yes? Yes.
Okay, so we're supposed to keep posting from the old scenarios plus the new ones?
Yeah, I said that from the very beginning.
Yeah, so you don't just stop the old ones, you have to keep going.
The world doesn't stop, it continues.
Okay.
And people don't forget, they remember. And they hold grudges. All right, and this festers until there's an explosion. Okay, so yeah, it's an ongoing process. Yeah,
That's what kind of like confused me yesterday, because I was trying to make my moves, and I had like these very strategic plans from the first move that I made, and I was like calling countries and all of this, and then I looked at all the other moves. Like I had to start going onto other scenarios because I looked at the other moves, and they're like, "Yes, America, we agree with what you're saying." And it was just kind of like they ended it there. I was like, no,
but here's the thing. You can agree, but what are we going to do about it?
Yeah,
we can agree on, so we agree on a concept, we agree on a problem. So the next step is to do what? Let's try to solve the problem. Okay? So now you have to come up with a solution. The world is full of people who complain. Everybody's complaining, everybody's got problems, everybody's got issues. Well, guess what? Everybody is facing the same thing. What you want to do is to kind of, at some point, okay, I got these problems, so what am I going to do about it? What's it going to take for me to solve it? Who can I turn to for support to solving this problem, right? Okay, that's the kind of stuff I want you guys to be thinking of. And frankly speaking, when you think about this isn't just applicable to this class, this is applicable to anything in life, right? And one of the problems that and this is something that emerges in the international arena. And remember, when we talked about in Chapman, we did the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's a tremendous amount of misunderstanding there. People misunderstand. Remember when we did that BBC documentary where when Castro went to the United States uninvited, President Eisenhower decided not to meet, so he sent Vice President Nixon, who basically took a look at Castro, had a meeting, and declared him a communist, okay? And said, we can't do business with a communist, right? And then Castro walks away, and then they began to do what? Began to try to sabotage the Castro regime, and in many ways pushed Castro where?
To the communist side.
To the Soviet Union, who frankly had no idea who he was, okay? Soviets saw an opportunity, right? So now this is a lot easier to, to talk about this after it happened, because it's a lot easier to go back in time and kind of do the right thing after you've seen the consequences. This is another thing. Every action generates a reaction. So any solution that you adopt may solve the problem partially, completely, or not at all. But as you begin to solve these problems, other problems begin to emerge. Okay? And things that you can't anticipate, because the world is too complicated to understand all the future states of the world, right? Because we're challenged epistemologically and ontologically to deal with these kinds of issues. Okay? That is epistemologically. Now, what should you have asked? I did this on purpose. I wanted to see someone raise their hand and say what? Professor, what does epistemologically mean?
Knowledge. Something knowledge.
Oh, very good, Faiza. As we're talking, what should you be doing on your computer? Typing it in what? No. Look it up. Philosophy of knowledge. Okay? What's ontological mean? You should, and as I'm talking about epistemology, you say, okay, I'm not going to answer the part about epistemology, but I'm going to raise my hand and say, I know what ontological means, right? After some student raises their hands and says, Professor, what does ontological mean? That's enough time to, what does it mean? No. Okay. Come on, look it up. Now, I'm doing this because I want you guys to be in a habit, because when you take a 400 level course, all right, you have to be you got to get into that kind of routine where you're using the technology to support your knowledge base, because you have to come to the realization that there is no way in the world that you will have all the information at your fingertips. Yes?
UAE is in the link right here.
It isn't?
No,
It's not working?
no, it's not a link. Like, it's not a link. I didn't actually.
Just double click on it. Oh, okay. I'll take care of that. Okay, diplomatic challenge. I'll take care of that. Well, who's looked up ontological? Ontological. Ontology. The branch of metaphysics that studies the nature of existence or being of such. What in the world does that mean, right, Professor Roman? All right, it's a default branch of metaphysics that studies the nature of existence as being as such. Okay, now, what that basically means is this. Okay, if I'm going to study, nation states, all right, if I'm going to study nation states, and I'm going to try to understand nation-state behavior, okay? Is it possible for me to understand nation-state behavior by focusing on nation-states side by side? Or do I need to take a look at the different types of regimes that control the nation-states? Or do I need to take a look at the individuals that are heads of the nation-states? Do you see what I've just done? I've gone from a nation-state, I've gone to the party who controls the nation, organizations that can control the nation-states, all the way down to the level of the individual. You see? That's an ontological distinction. You guys got it? Okay? So, now, my point is, or getting back to my point, and how did we get to ontological, epistemological? Can someone remind me? I kind of got drifted off there for a second. Thought it'd be funny for a second, I got sidetracked. No, but seriously, what we're talking about here is this kind of activity is very helpful. Not just in this class, but also in your other classes. And even just this idea of what we're doing here with looking up the internet, looking for answers, helping you kind of come up with good questions when the teacher's doing a lecture, okay? This is a whole nother type of learning experience that you have at your fingertips, and that I'm trying to experiment in this class. But you got to get into the habit of using the technology rather than sitting there. And the problem that when I listen to you talk in terms of how you are approaching this, you got to remember that we no longer live in a linear world. We live in a multi-linear world, and we're being bombarded with information left and right. And we as individuals have to come up with strategies to deal with this complexity that we are facing, okay? So in many ways, this kind of approach in the classroom is my way of contributing to your learning process to deal with the complexity.
Real life situations.
And so whether it's the kind of test that I'm giving you, whether it's the kind